Welcome to the ATP Project Show with your host Matt and Jeff, and today we have Carl Gibson from the CMA with us, who is the CEO. Yep. Carl, thanks for joining us. There's a lot happening in this space in Australia at the moment. And Carl, for those who are not familiar with the CMA, what we might do is just maybe introduce yourself, introduce the CMA, what your organisation does, and who you support and who you're the voice for.
Thanks, Matt and Jeff. Yes, Complementary Medicines Australia is the peak industry body for the complementary medicines industry, and also we represent health foods as well. So our job is to be the advocates for the industry with both the government and the media and the regulator. And we're unique. We represent the whole of the supply chain. So from everybody from the manufacturers to the importers to the brands and the brand owners and the retailers. So we speak with some strength when we talk to government.
Great, yeah. So, Matt, do you have some questions? Obviously, there's a lot happening in our space at the moment. So,
well, the main purpose of this is we wanted to discuss a little bit about. There's been a consultation period that's been opened up by TGA to discuss some potential changes that want to improve safety in our industry.
Yeah,
which at first glance we've gone, fantastic idea. Definitely want to go ahead. We want to push towards safety. Anything we can do to get involved in creating a system that will improve safety, then we're all for it. But then we did read the draft document of how they plan on creating this safety network. And the only thing that really worried me about it is it looks like it gives them enough power to kind of regulate anything at any time that they want. But I'm more worried about in the short term, because initially the safety concerns revolved around protein, caffeine, and they referenced unlabeled pharmaceuticals and banned ingredients. And I can see in the short term, a lot of the products may disappear from the retailers that have that education and staff, and that it might encourage a lot of online sales from overseas and direct imports, which I don't see how that's going to improve safety. And I just don't see how these changes are going to improve safety. And our concern was, I want to be involved in a discussion so we can have our voice and see if we can all together work out something that will improve safety.
Well, I might throw over to Carl, and actually we might really preface this a little bit in terms of, obviously, there's been 2 tragic deaths that have been attributed to the use of supplements. What do you see the real issues being here, and what's trying to be achieved by the government?
Yeah, let me start by saying, yes, you're absolutely right. There was 2 tragic deaths of bodybuilders over the last few years, and that is a true tragedy. And we actually want to work with the government and with the regulator to make sure that the safety standards, that never happens ever again. But we have to put that consultation in context. And let me start by just giving a little bit of a background to the consultation and a little bit of background to the regulator and where they're coming from as well. So basically, it's the medicines regulator, which is the Therapeutic Goods Administration, is looking at reclassifying many of the sports supplements as therapeutic goods. Now, currently, they are classified as foods and they're regulated as foods. So transitioning over to therapeutic goods has a lot of knock-on effects and a lot of implications for those sports nutrition products. Anything from pre-workout to post-workout mixes as well. So whilst you may be used to seeing pills and formulas as therapeutics, this actually affects 40 to 50% of all current sports nutrition products. So it's not a small consultation, it's a massive consultation with a huge impact as well. So we are trying to respond on behalf of industry to actually alert the TGA, the medicines regulator, say, look, there's more at stake here. It's affecting the whole of the supply chain of the whole of industry, and it has the possible unintended consequence of actually removing 40 to 50% of all products from the shelves. And what that essentially means is that you're giving consumers less choice rather than more choice. So consumers will go overseas or online and buy illegal products, and that's only going to perpetuate the problems with safety. Because if you're buying products from overseas retailers, you're not sure about the quality and you're putting yourself at risk. So it's actually having the unintended consequences, having a worse effect rather than moving it to a more safe regime. So if you can bear with me a sec, I'll just go through the impacts that it has across the whole of the sector. So moving a product to a therapeutic regime means that that product will have to be listed on the Australian Register of Therapeutic Goods. And not all the sports supplements products qualify for that registration because it might be a different dosage, it might be ingredients. There's a lot of there's a lot of criteria that has to complete. So you actually find quite a lot of products will not be able to make it to the Australian Register of Therapeutic Goods, so can't be listed. And if
sorry, Carl, we've been saying to a lot of people that really breaking that down, it's like trying to bake your current cake where you're using, water, eggs, chocolate, salt, maybe a little bit of herb from over here. No, you can use effectively flour, eggs, and water, and that's all that you can use. Yeah. So, it's a lot of the products that people enjoy just simply can't go over because those individual ingredients are not listed.
There is that. There's also I'll use your analogy a bit further, which is that cake has 3 eggs, and under therapeutic goods, you're only allowed to use 1 egg because of the dosage limits.
Right.
And it doesn't have the therapeutic impact that you want to have under sports nutrition.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great analogy.
And furthermore, you still need to source your eggs and flour from
I was just coming onto that as well, as where do you get your ingredients from? And that's going to have an impact because the manufacturers at the moment manufacture under food standards. To actually manufacture for therapeutic goods is a different level of standard, and that has to be under the pharmaceutical standards, which is regulated and audited by the Therapeutic Goods Administration. Now, to get to a Therapeutic Goods Administration standard of manufacturing can take you 12 to 18 months to upgrade a facility and millions of dollars. Yeah. Many people won't be able to do that, and also the existing manufacturing capacity we have in Australia won't be able to cope with the increase in demand. So you're going to move your manufacturing offshore.
Well, and that was one of the questions I really wanted to know, Carl. You might be able to break this down for me. And we're building a new facility, $15 million facility in Meadowbrook, which we've made capacity now to make that a TGA registered facility. And even keeping here as a TGA registered facility as well too. But you're right, it's going to cost a lot of money and it's actually going to take quite a lot of time. But how many facilities are there for contract manufacturing in Australia that are TGA? Because obviously there are some companies that have their own facility, but they don't contract manufacture. Correct. So how many TGA manufacturers contract are there in Australia?
You've got 100. I think it's about 148 manufacturing facilities, but of which, as you're quite right, some of those are their own brands, so they don't contract manufacture to other people. So you're looking at less than a dozen contract manufacturers as a possible base to get everything manufactured, and quite a lot of those are at capacity. Anybody will have seen the Double 11 sales we had last week in China, where we increased our sales of exports to China, which is a really important market for therapeutic goods because of the quality standards. And we increased our sales last year over this year by 30%, and last year was a record. So we've had a huge Double 11 sales, and manufacturing capacity is starting to get to capacity again.
With the majority of the therapeutic goods are capsules, tablets, and pills. So when we've been ringing around trying to find some TGA manufacturers, there's none that we can find that are available for powder filling.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And I think that's an oversight on most people in this consultation don't realise that most of those powders will be regulated as therapeutic, as medicines going forward. It's not just the pills and capsules, it will be the powders as well.
And furthermore, a lot of those companies have multiple claims to fame for their product, but a lot of them will talk about flavours. What we've also noticed in regards to medicines, they don't encourage impulse people. They don't want to encourage people just to be drinking them because they taste great. So there's very few flavours listed. Even the flavours, people don't realise excipients, flavours, fillers. So you might be stuck with chocolate, vanilla, medicine, cherry, and orange.
And fish oil. That tastes good. That tastes lovely.
So those are some of the challenges. And if you don't mind, we've been through a process just in this last year where we've actually taken some of our products and listed them onto the ARTG where we saw that it was possible to make them with similar ingredients, similar quality, and that sort of stuff. Now, that process, without the whole industry trying to do it, while no one else was doing it, we did it, and that's taken us over 9 months And that is with ingredients that was with a contract manufacturer that was eager to get the job, ingredients that we could use,
Yep.
and systems already going. And another thing that people don't realise is that it also requires a total rebrand, because you can't then go have a product as a name with a food. So, for example, if you've got a big global company that happens to be allowing some people to stock their products in Australia and sell it, then having that little Aussie battler going back to the big multinational saying, you're going to have to change the name, you're going to have to make special stuff for us here in Australia. That's going to have a new name. It's not just a matter of putting an Austell number. And
no, it isn't. No, there are labeling requirements as well, which is an extra regulatory burden.
Yeah. And then they can't have the same brand sold in other regions as a food as they have as a drug somewhere else. So it becomes very complicated for a lot of big companies that Australia's not really their main income. They're more likely just to say, okay, well, look, Australia, your retailers in Australia, you just miss out.
Yeah.
And people can buy direct.
You're right, because there's no standard across the world. Australia is unique. We manufacture to pharmaceutical standards, which means that the dosages are heavily controlled and the substances and the ingredients that we use are heavily controlled as well. So whilst that might put us at the forefront of safety and quality around the world, it has that impact of not being able to use the ingredients and which are available elsewhere in the world. So if you're a large multinational, very few of the products that you sell in America will you be able to register here in Australia.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Actually, and look, we and by no way and means, and Carl, we're talking off air as well too, is this deemed as an attack on the TGA
or Minister or any
none whatsoever.
The objective is good.
We appreciate that, and we understand it's about safety, and my heart goes out to those families as well too that have been affected, and I mean that sincerely as well. And I know that people want action when somebody has been killed. People want answers. They want to know why. But we actually started this process. We were contacted the TGA because of some advertising guidelines, which we have fully complied with. But as Matt said, that's why we've already gone through this process, and we know how difficult it has been to bring all of our capsulated products over to be fully Austell listed, and it has been a mission, and it's still going. We've had to contract somebody else, even though we are a GMP ISO 9001. And by the way, we didn't have one non-compliance when we had our auditors very well too. 5-star food HACCP. We are amongst, I think, one of the best manufacturers in the world. Our standards are excellent, and we send everything off for third-party testing down at the plant sites. But that is still not as high a regulation as we need to go with the TGA, because we need different air filtration systems and things like that. But that's what I'm saying, is that if you've got 50,000 products all of a sudden where GMP manufacturing is not good enough, you need to go to TGA. Of those 50,000 products, as we said, you've got a dozen manufacturers. You're looking at 2-3 year lead times. If they get done at all, there are going to be companies that are literally going to go bankrupt waiting for their product to be made.
Yeah, but Carl, who do you think is going to feel it first? I mean, companies like ourselves, we can maybe adapt, or we can think. I'm more concerned. I mean, a lot of this stuff, from my point of view, the retailers, I think, are going to really hurt, because they've already bought a lot of this stuff and they're already going to have it on their shelves. What's going to happen there, do you think?
We usually, if the changes do go ahead, then there is usually a period of transition, so that those products should be able to sell through. I think I think all categories of the sector will be affected, and affected quite badly, starting with consumers who are going to have fewer choices available. So their normal and their favourite pre-mix and post-workout shakes will no longer be available. So they will start looking at, if it's their favourite and they want to get access to it, they'll buy it online and legal, which will hurt retailers, because they're only selling half the products they used to. So does that retailer become viable or not? And then the manufacturers are in a bit of a mix, because they can't get their factories up to pharmaceutical standards within 12 months' time. So the whole of the sector is impacted. I honestly don't think that the TGA anticipated that it would be 40 to 50,000 products affected. I personally believe that they thought it was going to be a dozen or a couple of dozen. And they have the power to reclassify those products which are sitting somewhere between a food but with a therapeutic claim as therapeutic goods. I don't think anybody was anticipating, when we did the analysis, of it actually impacting 40 to 50,000 products.
No.
Yeah.
And I know also too, there's a lot of fear out there because the consultation papers and all the dialogue revolved around protein, because one of the victims had a protein problem and with the protein, and the other one was a pure caffeine powder.
Can we actually just break it down?
My fear is here is that they started talking about it. So is this affected? Are they regulating protein now to save people from that?
Some protein powders will be affected as well, but I'll just make the point on caffeine that we've had 3 regulatory changes with caffeine in the last 18 months, and the industry has worked very closely with a regulator on those changes to make sure that never happens ever again. Our hearts go out to the family. It really is an absolute tragedy, but the changes which have been made together with industry and the government and the regulator has made sure that cannot happen again. So the restrictions on caffeine.
And who passed down that? Was that done through Fazance, or was that done through the health minister? Like who actually implemented that change so that couldn't happen again, Carl?
A Therapeutic Goods Administration.
They did. Yeah. And we're all for that. The selling of pure caffeine. I mean, again, you've got toddlers as well too, and we appreciate if that can be done in that way. I don't think the industry needs to be overhauled for us to get consensus on.
Yeah, what we'd like to see is that we know that quite a lot of these products which are coming in are coming in illegally, are of varying qualities of standards and will affect safety. What we want to see is that the border protection is beefed up, so we actually stop these illegal products coming into Australia to start with, because that's the hub of the problem, is that these illegal products coming in, flooding into the marketplace and actually entering bodybuilder community. That's where we need to. That's the issue we need to tackle. Really, we need to tackle that urgently.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to say about
they're unlabelled, though.
Yeah, they're unlabelled. Well,
a lot of the time it's unlabelled, and this is, if you don't mind, because we've had experience with this, where we've used overseas manufacturers and had contaminations of materials that we did not request in our products and had to do recalls and break it all down. We did voluntary, so we basically tested everything, found it and eliminated it, but we had an overseas manufacturer that we trusted, and we had contaminated, unlabelled, banned substances.
And that's why we started.
And then that's when we brought to Australian manufacturer. Yeah. Our next step was an Australian TGA manufacturer who happened to have banned substances on site because they're a pharmaceutical manufacturer and lots of different materials. Materials were substituted. We ended up with a product with 200 times the amount of iodine, actually toxic levels of iodine, of course not labelled because we didn't plan for that. So this is what I'm talking about.
Which never went out to market.
And Australia, that got quarantined. So we built an Australian food manufacturing facility so we can control our raw materials and control our quality. My fear is if that's what's going to get shut down. I mean, that was the only way that we could get.
And that's my fear, is that consumers who won't have access to their favourite products will look elsewhere for them. They will look online, they will import them legally, and they don't have access like you guys do to testing of those products when they arrive. So they don't know, the iodine content level, caffeine level, or if it's going to harm them. So we just want action taken on those illegal products coming in, and we'll work with the government and the regulator on the rest of the sports supplement sector to see what truly are therapeutics, and which ones need to be regulated as therapeutics and which ones should stay food. It shouldn't be 40 to 50,000 products. That is definitely overreach.
And one of the things that's important, I guess, from the economic point of view, Carl, and you've got some great information in terms of industry statistics, is that sports supplements, and I guess for the average person that's listening to this podcast today as well too, a lot of the time they think of the fringe products as being bodybuilders. And what's interesting, I guess, is that they're calling them, bodybuilders think of, the big guys sweating it up in the gym. But the people that are using pre-workouts and proteins, the everyday athlete, in fact, a larger section of the older community are using them now for energy before they go and do a walk, before they go to a gym session. And again, that's the concern, I guess, sometimes, is that I'd hate that industry to be marginalised as just bodybuilders, because it's athletes, it's people like Cara, it's CrossFit, it's rugby, it's netball, it's
everyday athletes, weekend warriors. I mean, when they do market research with our particular company, our main demographic is women aged 30 to 45 that usually have a tertiary education and more, often a child and that sort of stuff. So we look at, that's our target demographic. They're not, and highly educated, highly informed, smart people.
Yep. I'll put some financial numbers down for you guys. So the industry, complementary medicines industry, that's therapeutics, is $5.2 billion, of which $1.1 billion is the sports nutrition category.
Yeah, wow, it's huge. And look, the thing is that in that, with the extreme athletes, the bodybuilders and the professional athletes and all the rest of it, they use a lot of supplements and they're passionate about their rights as well too. And there's a lot of concern, I think, in that community now, and a lot of confusion as well too. With only 2 weeks to go, people are only just finding out about this, Carl, in terms of,
it is a very short consultation, and it's a very unusual consultation because it doesn't actually set out 4 options. What it does is use the existing TGA's powers. Forgive me if I go political, because that's what I do.
Sure.
It's attached draft orders under the powers it has to reclassify many of those sports supplements. So instead of getting what is a normal consultation where there are 4 options, there aren't 4 options here. There is a consultation on the draft orders to reclassify. So it is a very expedited consultation. And it closes, as you said, first week in December. And the intent is to move quickly in the new year to reclassify them. Now, we as an industry association are saying to the government, to the TGA, just stop a minute. We just need to understand the impact that those orders will have across the whole of the sector here. And perhaps there is a better way. Perhaps we should talk as one, as a round table with industry association, together with the government, together with the regulator, together with the food standards, states and territories, and border protection. Because ultimately, and I come back to the point that most of those issues of safety were caused because of illegal products entering the country. That's where we need to actually put our resources and our focus, and not reclassifying products. Well, not 40, 50,000. We need to reclassify a couple of dozen, but we need to put the focus on products entering the country illegally.
Yes. Yeah, that's a really good point. I've been talking to a lot of other manufacturers. I was talking with Max's, Paul, he's been in the industry for a long time. We've been talking with other distributors, retailers like ASN Nutrition Warehouse in Australia, and all of them, it's a relatively fragmented group. I mean, the CMA, I think, is a fantastic organisation. I know that you have been making it easier for smaller companies like ours to actually, come in. And you're right, we do need to unite to have not only the ability to communicate with government, but also to self-regulate, to actually say, you know what, we're going to tidy up our own, we're going to address these things as a community, and then in consultation with government, then look at implementing changes that look at it not just from a point of view of safety, but also a practical way that it's not going to impede business. Now, I know that the TGA's charter, it's got 6 KPIs that it operates under, and Josh Frydenberg in 2014 said he was very, very concerned, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, that he didn't want the regulators to over-regulate that would unnecessarily impede on business. And again, while I understand the moves that the TGA is making here, I think that the full impact of this hasn't been costed. Does there need to be an impact statement provided by government, in terms of, what the economic fallout's going to be from this as well too?
You're absolutely right. What we've called for in our response to government is having that inter-government consultation led by COAG, and it should be the states and territories which call for the economic impact assessment, so you understand what sectors are impacted financially and if this is a viable option, because we see many of the smaller retailers going out of business on the back of 40 to 50% of products being removed from shelves. It's unsustainable for them to carry on in business. And also the impact as well to manufacturing. To upgrade a facility, as you will know, costs millions of dollars and will take at least 12 to 18 months. So, there is impact across the whole of the industry sector here, and consumers at the end of the day will not benefit from this. There will not be
Will it be safer is the other thing. I don't think it'll be safer in my personal opinion.
Well, it won't stop illegal products coming into the country. And that's the dilemma we have, is the TGA will do its best to regulate products as therapeutics, as medicines, rather than as food. But if people still keep buying those illegal products online, it does nothing to address that.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. So in terms then, I guess, Carl, to your call to the industry, specifically the sports industry, talking with Keith from Maxis, he's the founder, they set up a group many years ago called the SSIG, which was the Sports Supplements Industry Group. And they really tried to create a consensus among the sports industry, which now we know is a $1 billion industry, so it's not insignificant. But they couldn't quite get their act together. Carl, I know that we've been talking a little bit off air about, working with the CMA about having specifically the sports industry, represented under the CMA. How could you see us coming together under one banner? How would you see that operating? I think we have to. But as you would see, there's a lot of people who in the same industry, they're competitors, right? I mean, it's sometimes it can be
that's how an industry association works, is that the competitors come together and work as united industry with a united message. So we represent some of the larger brands as well, who also have sports supplement ranges. So we also have the facilities as well and the resources to actually lobby government and to have those conversations and dialogues with a regulator, because we've been around for 30 odd years as an industry body. So what we've tried to do is fast track a category of membership for those sports supplements sector, so they can actually come on board, join us, add their voice to the lobbying work we're doing, the advocacy work we're doing, and keep updated with those latest alerts and updates, so we can actually campaign as well to actually get a united front, so there is that intergovernment task force to address this issue. Because it won't be addressed just by removing 50% of products. That does not fix the problem. What that does is actually move the problem underground or to different channels.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know we're looking through the information you put through, and I appreciate that, Carl. And at the moment, the consensus is that ATP Science is going to be joining the CMA. We're going to be encouraging other people in our industry as well too. Obviously, I know that and our conversations have been really good with regards to how you can represent the industry and how we can obviously work together.
I was curious. There's something that's still bugging me about this whole thing. In regard, do you know what? I haven't been able to get a hold of Fazance to ask them their thoughts on it, but I was under the impression that Fazance were currently doing a review on this exact same thing. And
I've just come from another meeting this morning, and I thought Fazance was conducting a review too. But what the TGA is doing is using their powers to override Fazance to remove these products from their remit and into the therapeutic medicines regulator. So whilst that Fazance review may be going on, it is an aside to this consultation.
Because the draft order put out by TGA was referencing the Fazance
review
and standards, saying if it falls outside of this standards, then we can deem it to be therapeutic. But those standards are in the process of changing as well.
Yeah, it is the horse before the cart.
And WADA changes every year anyway.
Yes, it does. But there is a consultation on that process.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So what has been your feedback from the TGA? I mean, obviously with the CMA and all the industry that you represent, what has the TGA said to you in terms of your questioning or your calls for a longer consultation period thing?
We haven't we've asked for a longer consultation period because it is, as you noticed, the consultation is one of the shortest I've seen. And I think most folks didn't realise that they were impacted by it. So we've asked the TGA if we can extend that consultation or really stop and do a regulatory impact assessment. So we need to understand the impact, the huge negative impact this is going to have across the whole of the sector. But at the moment, we haven't yet been able to secure an extension to that consultation yet. I'm in further conversations with the TGA at the end of this week, early next week, to try and get that consultation extended. I've escalated it this morning to ministerial level to see if we can try and get some ministerial pressure to extend that consultation.
Look, and from our experience with the TGA, almost always has been good in the end. I mean, typically they come down with a bit of an authoritarian voice, and if you've done the wrong thing, absolutely, those things need to be changed. What we're looking for, I guess, is that, and I guess a lot of people are afraid of, is that there's a lot of legislation, authority and power that they have to be able to completely shut down this industry overnight. If there is going to be that, if this does come through, there's not an extension, people are saying, well, how long are we going to have to comply? Is it going to be 3 months, 6 months? I know when there was a change to some products in the marketplace.
DMAA?
The DMAA, I think there was a 90 days, was it? You can't remember.
Yeah, it was 90 days, yeah.
And then I think they even gave it a little extension at the end of that because they recognised they had so much feedback from people saying, look, we've bought stuff, we had stuff on the water, it's taken longer, we need. And fortunately, they were able to get through that and tidy up the market without people effectively going bankrupt, which was obviously
and what you have to understand at the moment is that we've had the largest changes in the regulatory regime for complementary medicines for the last 25 years. That's still being implemented at the moment. So at the moment, 12,500 products have to be re-registered with the TGA and relisted, and their claims have to be updated. So at the moment, it's taking 4 or 5 hours to actually relist one product at the moment because the computer system is not fit for purpose and keeps crashing. So to add another 40, 50,000 products to that backlog, the TGA computer system physically cannot handle it.
Yeah.
Well, we've been going through the process with our products, and we were told it would be a 48-hour turnaround time through the portal. And I think
it's went out to 90 days for some of them because a lot of the facilities also have to be registered, and there was a big backlog of the registry of the facilities.
Yeah.
So whilst the TGA might want to install its new orders as quickly as they possibly can, the reality is that the processes and the systems aren't there yet to support it.
Oh, yeah. And so the retailers that have got these products on the shelves, I mean, it's going to take a little while for border security to be able to catch up on all the banned substances or the reclassified stuff. So they're going to pretty well go to the retailers and stop them from selling it first, or is that likely? Or
one of the things we're seeing, and this is by nowhere a guarantee what is going forward, but one of the things that usually happens is the ability to sell through existing stock. So stock that's been manufactured in warehouses and retailers, you have the opportunity to sell that through. And once that's sold through, the next batch of manufacturing must abide by the new rules.
Yeah, and look,
there's no guarantee that will happen, by the way. I'm just saying that is usually the case of when something is reclassified.
Sure. I mean, and again, where there's no clear and present danger to society, and in other words, these products have been out there for a period of time, maybe with the exception of the caffeine, obviously, then there should be an opportunity for these products to sell through. I mean, it makes sense, right? Otherwise, the impact to business and to the economy could be absolutely, catastrophic.
Well, I have a look at ingredients like dynamine, dynamine, a trademark material, and they've specified that as one of the relevant substances that is a banned substance. Globally, that's got GRAS certification. I mean, it's generally regarded as safe in every other country. So those sort of things, they would be given, and the retailers would be given an opportunity to hopefully sell through that. But as you say, there's no guarantee. And we're getting very little information. In regards to this consultation, it's not much of a conversation. It's like...
No, and I think you find, I've shared it with the guys that the CMA's response is actually more extensive than the consultation itself.
Right. Yes, yeah, exactly. So what's your message to stakeholders out there, maybe people that aren't members of the CMA, and also you're representing, naturopaths and small general wellness business as well too, obviously sport supplements. Who are the disenfranchised potentially that can come under the banner of the CMA to have their voice heard?
Yeah, we have also our retailer group as well, who will be affected, our health food retailers, who will be impacted as well by not having those products to sell through. And they have the reach with the consumers. So we'll be encouraging people to use our position statement that is on our website now. We just finished it about an hour ago. You're the first to see it.
Great.
So hopefully that's helpful. It's a really good position statement, and it sets out the actions we want to see. So I'll encourage folks to visit Complementary Medicines web page, where we'll put that position paper available, and then we'll have talking points. Is that very good? Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's great and it's clear, and you know, one of the things I really like as well too is that when we're talking, and you're already ahead of the game about making it easier for you know, small medium enterprises to join as well too, which, you know, all this is a good move, and I think again it can be something that we can get behind to actually have a voice, you know, within the health industry.
I think our experience, I know this isn't being wanky or anything, but I honestly think that the experiences from companies like ourselves, the retailers and that, as part of a conversation with TGA, I just think we can do more for the safety aspect.
Yeah.
I think so. And that's our concern. Our concern is always safety.
You're absolutely right. We should have it would have been better with a roundtable conversation to see what actions that we can recommend to the regulator, and the regulator take action as well, and for a better outcome for all. Because we know there are some products which should be upscheduled into medicines. We know that.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be a blanket across all 40, 50,000 products.
Yeah. And what would be your message to the TGA if they were, and they listen, the guys love us, they listen to this all the time. No, but I mean, like, you know, to the TGA, what is it, what action does the CMA want? Is it just longer consultation time, or what else?
I've just sent a letter to the head of the medicines regulator this morning, which sets out our concerns about this consultation. We're asking for an extended period of consultation so others can add their voice, because it is a very short consultation. And we'll set out the impact assessment that we see. What we'd like to have is an intra-government consultation, so we actually get the best of the government departments, so we actually get the best actions going forward, together with an impact assessment to see which sectors of the industry will be affected, and if that is a cost-benefit analysis going forward. And we actually, again, to my major point, we need to actually put the resources where it matters in stopping illegal products coming into the country in the first place, because those are the ones that are doing harm, and they will not be impacted by this consultation at all.
Yeah, and to the public at large, you know, the people that might be using some of these supplements that are concerned, you know, what's your advice to them?
Be wrong to say stock up, would it?
Well, then the funny thing is that we've even had people, you know, contacting us going, should we buy lots of supplements and things like that? But we don't know, because, I mean, again, depending on how quickly they have for you to comply, that might not be a good thing. But that probably could be prudent. But hopefully, Carl, we can get that dialogue. We can band together as an industry. We can bring about sensible, effective, safe changes for the industry, while at the same time not impairing and impeding business from being able to.
No, you're absolutely right. We all want to see a sports nutrition sector which is safe and of the highest quality. We want to protect consumers to make sure they have access to products which are safe and of the highest quality. But we need to make sure that the consultation makes sure that there is a sector which is viable going forward, because if it's not viable, we won't be able to bring any sports nutrition products to market.
Yeah, a lot of the sports nutrition companies may not have noticed or been witness to this, but a few years ago I was more into the naturopath thing and in with the health food stores and that sort of stuff. And I remember we used to have all these awesome, like, traditional medicines that we always used to use the traditional foods. We get the cool stuff out as naturopaths and health foodies. We could play any of that sort of stuff. Could be teas, could be anything. Then the tea, at that time, people were getting damaged from the contamination in traditional medicines not being manufactured properly. So TGA regulated traditional medicines as therapeutic goods and created a new category called OST-A. So 3 years later, I haven't seen any traditional medicines as therapeutic goods filling the gaps. And that really hurt the naturopaths and the health food industry at the time, because they lost a lot of products, nowhere near the impact of this. But there's no OST-A products, is there? I've never seen
the OST-A is a new pathway that we've campaigned for a decade. What it does is actually give products which have got higher levels of evidence, higher levels of claims. As I said, we've had a new regulatory regime implemented, which is the first for 25 years and will probably be in their place for the next 25 years. So the OST is a brand new pathway. It's only been available for less than a year. There are a number of applications in, and there's a number of applications progressing. But you're absolutely right. At this point, there is not one. So assessed product on the shelves yet.
Right.
Do you think that could be similar? Would that be a good example of what might happen in this industry as well, in regards to the sports sector being regulated? Because it's such a different beast.
No, because the OST-assess pathway is where the TGA assesses the evidence and gives a claim, and it has clinical trials which is protected, and it is for higher levels of dosages. What we're going to see in the sports sector supplement is that it will meet listed standards.
Yeah.
So very, very, very low level claims.
Yeah. And like you say, it's still so confusing with a lot of this, because I don't understand what sort of claims that they're going to be able to make under it, and then what sort of substantiating evidence. For example, in the sports world, we have product classes called vasodilators, and in the sports world, a vasodilator might improve your sporting performance and exercise by improving your circulation, or maybe your sexual prowess in the bedroom or something like that, but there are other recreational activities that were listed in there. But under the therapeutic guidelines, I mean, wouldn't they be hypertensive claims? I mean,
if you've got the evidence to back that up, don't forget anything which is listed as a medicine on the Australian Register of Therapeutic Goods, which sports supplements will have to be under this consultation, still requires an evidence in order to make those claims. So you need an evidence pack to accompany those. So you can't, as a moment, when you've got a food product and the evidence is worldwide for that particular claim, that's fine. But when you register it as a therapeutic good on the Australian Register, you have to have the evidence pack to list it.
Yeah.
So, and a couple of things from industry, Carl, as being a bit of an expert, I really want to clear up as well too. With this thing comes a lot of misinformation out in the general public. One of the things that I've heard stated is that the reason why the TGA have taken this action is because of proprietary blends. Can you give an answer on that? That the reason why they're taking their overhaul to the system is because of proprietary blends. I'm serious. This is what I just want to clear up some of the confusion that's out.
I can't talk to that. What I can talk to is what the background to the consultation is the health minister wanted to make sure that consumers had access to sports supplements which were safe and of the highest quality, and it tasked the Therapeutic Goods Administration to look at this. Well, of course, if you're asking the medicines regulator to look at a sector, its answer is always going to be that it wants to see those products moved into medicines regulation.
Yeah. It's and this is the problem, I think, is that we need to get the industry together. We need to buy in behind CMA and other industry representatives that are talking evidence and have that communication already with the ministers. So
just regarding your proprietary blends, it's in case Carl is not familiar with what you're referencing here, but under Australian food guidelines, you label products in descending order. The actual labelling things as therapeutic goods has become part of the problem. So where companies were trying to mislead the consumer into thinking that their product were a therapeutic good by creating a panel with chemical names and doses in milligrams and breaking it down, that misleads the consumer into thinking it's a drug or a therapeutic good. But that is also American labelling. So that is also confirmation.
And if you are making therapeutic claims, you are a therapeutic good.
But if you are, there's specific Australian food guidelines for labelling that Australian food manufacturers must comply with. And then imported products will come from America, for example, will have that full nutrition panel with it broken down because that's what they need to do in their jurisdiction. So it's actually the opposite. It's Australian companies disguising their products as American therapeutic goods. And which is what creates more confusion, is why we need a group and a body where we can discuss this amongst ourselves and say, what's the best way to do this?
You're absolutely right. And as a sector and an industry, we need to improve, that's for sure. But this consultation isn't the way to get to that benefit.
Perfect. And self-regulating is very different to self-policing, isn't it? It's
Well, we can do that on the next podcast because that is a whole different debate.
We'll do that.
And I was going to say, Carl, I'd love you to give a shout out to your website where people can go to find out more information. Go for it, mate.
Yeah, we're available on all the social media platforms under Complementary Medicines Australia and our website, which is cmaustralia.org.au. The position paper will be available. It's there. It's uploaded already. That's just gone off to the regulator this morning. I hope you guys have managed to have a skim read of the position paper. It's a very strong response to the consultation, and we would urge people. What I'm going to do next is boil that down, because it's a good read. It's 36 pages, I think.
Yes.
It's a really good read. What I'll do is I'll actually boil it down to 1 or 2 pages as an executive summary for people, so they can actually have their own talking points when speaking to either politicians or consumers, because it's important that people's voices are heard during this consultation period. Otherwise, you are going to lose 50% of all your products.
Well, I've already skim read it, and I think the information is excellent. We are actually sitting down with one of the federal ministers for innovation tomorrow as well too. We're going to be sharing that as well too, because we think the information is so beautifully laid out in terms of the impact and the size of the industry and what's at stake here. So, and again, I probably need to spend some more time on it. But look, Carl, thank you so much for taking the time, mate. It's been a real pleasure to meet you. During this industry, we reached out during this crisis to get a handle on, obviously, what the CMA was doing, and we love what you're doing. So, thanks for coming on the show, and we'd love to have you back, maybe to give us an update, hopefully with some success, or at least with some clarification coming back from the government of how this is going to impact us, how we can work as industry and for the benefit of consumers, and with hand in hand with government, sit down and have a nice kumbaya moment and get a consensus so that everybody is protected, including health, safety, businesses, the economy,
unbiased and accurate,
and we work together. So hopefully,
I really appreciate the opportunity, guys. It's helpful to actually reach out as well to a larger audience, because we know as a trade association based in Canberra that we get to speak to politicians and the regulator on a daily basis. So that's our interface, but it's important to be able to reach out to those people who are going to be affected as well, the retailers, the manufacturers, and the consumers as well, because at the end of the day, that these objectives, these orders by the TGA will heavily restrict what's available on shelves.
Yeah.
We could do it regular. I reckon we do a regular sort of thing.
We could do one once a quarter or something like that with industry updates and news. That would be fantastic. Yeah.
And the nice thing about being a trade association, we always have issues.
Good. You sound like Matt.
I don't have that many tissues for his issues.
I like that. That was a good one. Good. Look, thanks very much again, Carl. And we'll be staying in touch. And again, we hope to hear some good news, hopefully, from you soon.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Jeff.
Take care, guys.
Yeah.
Bye. Bye.